Buongiorno a tutti. I will speak English, so if you need headphones, and I apologize for speaking an Anglo-Saxon language. I hope this is not annoying. I want to thank Accenture for the invitation and CGM. My very first job was in the city government of London, where part of my job was to introduce Italian cooperative ideas into the London economy, and I completely failed. More recently, a few years ago, I had the honor to take part in the launch of Banca Prossima, which we used to help energize the movement of social investment in the UK, and that was more successful. So we have a long history of learning from the Italian social economy. I want to say a little bit about where I come from, and then some ideas which I hope may be useful and interesting. My current job is working for this organization. NESTA is the National Endowment for Science, Technology and the Arts. Our money originally came from lottery, gambling. We do research, we do investment, we do laboratories, and we used to be just about science, technology and the arts, but nowadays we are increasingly about society, about how to generate ideas for happiness, ideas for education, ideas for old age, and how to take them around this spiral from the germ of an idea to something with impact at scale. And we used to be just British, but now we work around the world, in China, India, South America, US. What I want to focus on today is the question summarized in the title of my most recent book, which is called The Locust and the Bee. And my argument is that in modern capitalism, we have powerful forces of creativity, of generating ideas, of innovation and entrepreneurship, but we also have powerful forces of predation, the locusts who suck value out of the economy. And in every country, the most important question is how do we empower the bees and how do we disempower the locusts? And this is a question which involves detail, it's about investment, it's about government, and in many countries it hangs in the balance. 7, 8 years after the financial crisis, some of the policies have strengthened the locusts and not the bees. I use the drone as a symbol of this. The drone is spreading all over the world as a symbol perhaps of the opposite of what we care about here. We have drones because over many decades, huge sums of public money have been invested in research and development for military purposes, research and development to drive business, high-tech business. But we believe now is the time to redirect some of that money, some of that energy to social needs, to things like jobs, aging, climate change. And at the moment, almost no society on the world does systematic experiment and innovation for social goals, even though all the rich countries spend now half of all of their public innovation money on the military. Fortunately, in the last few years, there has been a lot of thought about what social innovation is, how it can be done, how it can be measured. These are just a few of the flood of books and journals trying to make sense of what innovation means in a social context. There always has been social innovation, but only now are we talking about it in a more systematic way. And only in the last 10 years have we seen the emergence of institutions for social innovation. So where 20 years ago every city had a science park, now cities are beginning to create areas, spaces for social innovation. We have many governments creating social innovation funds. We have hundreds of incubators and accelerators for social ventures and innovation. Obama in the White House has a small office of social innovation. There are mayors all over the world defining themselves as social innovation mayors, like the mayor of Seoul in South Korea, who is probably the lead example, a mayor with a background in civil society and cooperatives, now running a city of 11 million people. We have prizes, we have governments trying to use procurement to support innovation, and we have the rise of corporate social innovation. The best example, I think, is still M-Pesa, which was an offshoot of Vodafone, the telecom company, who created a new kind of banking for poor rural communities, which has now spread all over East Africa, using corporate capability and achieving a social goal. Danone in France, working with Grameen to develop new products for poor households. Coca-Cola, through Cola Life, using the Coke distribution network, not just to distribute a very unhealthy drink, but also to distribute medicines to communities who couldn't get hold of them. So many examples, but still early stages. And we have new financing tools like social impact bonds in the UK, US, Germany, Australia. A new idea which may be important. We don't know yet. It is still too soon. And all of these increasingly linked together through networks like the Social Innovation Exchange, which is meeting today in Johannesburg, linking the social innovators across Africa. Now, in all of this, in some ways, is about growing the next generation of a collaborative economy, an economy for bees, an economy of cooperation. And much of my day-to-day work is about the methods to be used at each stage to generate new ideas, new models, new kinds of organization, and to take them to scale. I want to give a little flavor of what that means. So first of all, in relation to youth unemployment, this remains one of the most important issues in this country, in Spain, but also in countries like Mexico or China. And yet, we have almost no innovation programs for unemployment in the way we have innovation programs for drones or pharmaceuticals. So we have started developing tools to see what experimentation around jobs would look like. We've tried to map the best innovation models across the world in a living map of jobs innovations. We are testing new ideas like encouraging small businesses to act as mentors and coaches for the unemployed. New technology methods, like here you will see web scraping. This is difficult for the translator. New data tools to spot the emergence of new types of job, in this case, programming jobs. And at a European level, we've been running a competition for new ideas around technology and jobs. The EU Social Innovation Competition, which had more applicants from Italy this year than any other country in Europe. 1,300 ideas were submitted, very creative, very different from the ideas we got from traditional public agencies, traditional big corporations. But this is just the beginning of a systematic approach to innovation for employment. The other thing we've become much more interested in is then evidence. How in this field do we make sense of knowing what works, what doesn't work? It is a problem in all of government, but also in charities across the world, that sometimes the ideas they think are good turn out not to be very good when they are evaluated rigorously. We developed this framework for mapping any innovation, any program, in fields like employment or elder care or disability, so that we can have a common language of talking about how well we know if something is effective. Do you have data? Do you have control groups? Have you replicated experiments? And this has now been adopted by government, adopted for investors in the social economy, and we're beginning to get big corporates to adopt this. The world's largest education company, Pearson, has publicly committed to using this framework so they will only sell products which have evidence that they work. This should not be a radical idea, but it is a very radical idea for business, I'm afraid, that it should only sell products which actually work. And we think there is much further to go in becoming more rigorous about evidence for social impact. Then the next question is, how do we scale? How do we grow the best ideas? All over Europe and the world, we have often very good but very small social ventures or cooperatives, which we need to make much bigger. So we've been looking at the global examples of scale, like Pratham in India, which now has nearly 40 million pupils reached. And it's a collaboration of volunteers, communities, but also business providing volunteers. Avaz is transforming how politics is organized. They have 30 million users worldwide. Change.org, well over 50 million now. BRAC in Bangladesh is now the world's biggest social enterprise, nearly 200,000 employees. Fair trade has spread across the world as a movement, and the new generation of social economy organizations like couch surfing, that is couch surfing, more beds than all the international hotel chains put together, achieved in not much more than 5 years. And if you're interested in our recent report, Making It Big, we looked at the lessons for scale. What can be scaled, what cannot? How do you use different types of organizational model, different types of investment, different types of leadership and culture to grow from small to big? A very live example for me, because we had a meeting on Wednesday, is the Studio School. This is a new social innovation started 5 years ago in England. And our question was, what kind of school would get young people really excited, committed to come, and not committed to trying to keep out of the school? And we took some ideas from Italy, from Leonardo da Vinci, and from the cooperative movement of redesigning schooling so that work and learning were integrated. Now, most of the curriculum is done through real-life projects, working with NGOs or businesses. And these pictures come from the Liverpool Studio School, which works with the games industry, the computing industry. So from 14 years on, the pupils are creating products for local companies. They are being paid for their work. They are working in teams with collaboration, always as important as individual achievement. We have 50 of these schools now in Britain, and the first schools opening in America, Brazil, Argentina, and India next year. And this is just one example of, I think, embedding some of the ethos of social innovation much earlier in the education system. This is just an example of the curriculum framework. I don't know if you can see it, but as you can, maybe you can see, instead of a curriculum designed around history, geography, Italian, this is a curriculum designed around things like relating to others, enterprise, thinking, emotional intelligence. I think this is the curriculum of the 21st century, very different from most schools today. And cooperation is one of the things everyone learns in these kind of schools. To scale things, you need money. And one of the things we have done in Britain in the last 10, 15 years is to create really an ecosystem of funding, partly inspired by Italian models like Banca Etica, Banca Prossima, but we've gone in a slightly different direction. Here you may be able to see we have created sources of money from very small amounts of money for a social entrepreneur with one idea who maybe needs 1,000 euros, 5,000 euros to prove their idea, but funding at each stage from 10,000 to 100,000 to 1 million to 10 million. And we now have investment organizations at every step on this way. And most of the money we have got is in what you see at the top there, big society capital, a new bank which we created by persuading the government to pass a law which took the unclaimed bank accounts of the commercial banks and put it all into this new bank. It is capitalized at about 800 million euro and has transformed social investment in Britain. This single law, this single idea of taking, as it were, dead money from the private sector, putting it into social investment and bringing the expertise of the best financiers. So Europe's top venture capitalist was the chairman of this organization, succeeded by one of the top hedge fund financiers. So merging different kinds of expertise for success. I want to briefly mention another partnership model which we have been doing in the last year in the UK. And this is a partnership between my organization and government, the Cabinet Office, called the Centre for Social Action. And this is all about scaling examples of community action which mobilize the resources of the community to improve public services, like hospitals or schools or rehabilitation of criminals. Some of these models are new kinds of collaboration. So, for example, we are supporting new models where families are paid to take in an isolated older person. So they provide them a home instead of that person going into a residential care. Another example is around teaching children how to program computers. We are now reaching about half of all the schools in the UK, but mobilizing volunteers from business. So all the big IT companies like IBM, Cisco, encourage their employees to volunteer in code clubs to help 6-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds to create websites, robots, games, and so on. A classic collaboration, government, civil society, and business, but around very precise and measurable goals, and all about people helping people. We are also now increasingly working on the field of the shared economy, collaborative consumption, which has grown incredibly fast in the last few years through examples like Airbnb. And this week, we have worked with the government on a report on how to grow the shared economy in the UK. It's perhaps the next generation of cooperation, using the internet to use cars, buildings, land, household equipment more efficiently. It has its predators, its locusts. Some people would say that Uber is a locust and not a bee in the collaborative economy, but it is innovating extraordinary range of new business models, new organizational models, and making, again, dead capital, the unused capital of a room in someone's house, or a car which is only used for 1 hour in 24, mobilizing these for a new kind of economy. Behind all of this, I think we need a different kind of government. And one of the things we have been also doing is trying to prescribe, to suggest to governments how they can become better partners of social innovation. This is one set of answers, which was work we did with Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York, studying innovation teams in governments around the world. This report can be downloaded, and we found many examples from China and Korea to Colombia and France. And these are a very different generation of government structure, always working closely with civil society, often starting with small experiments, working very fast to find out if things work, and then having routes to take things to scale. They are very different from standard bureaucracies. I don't think Italy has anything like this in central government, and I don't think any central government which doesn't have some capacities like this will not be a good partner for innovation. And behind all of these teams is a different concept of policy, where policy doesn't just come from the top and go downwards, where more often the job of government is to understand the creativity of the grassroots, to support experimentation, and for practice to lead theory, for innovation to lead policy, and not the other way round. Very radical idea in its implications. Perhaps even more radical is the idea of collaborative democracy. And one of our other projects now is working with parliaments in Europe and political parties on how they can use the internet to involve the public in the design of law, the design of policy. The best examples now are Finland, which has something called the Open Ministry, an NGO, but which is given the right by Parliament to organize public input into public policy. And Iceland, in the city of Reykjavik, probably has the best example of an open platform for the next generation of democracy. So these are ideas which may be quite familiar to the cooperative movement in some ways, but in other ways point to a very different future of embedding cooperation into institutions which are usually very uncooperative. This project links to a broader program we are doing now on what we call digital social innovation. And if you're interested, you can see this website, which has been mapping projects across Europe, which are open knowledge, open hardware, open data, and open networks. These are perhaps the norm for social innovation in 10 or 20 years' time. So they include a very good Italian example. Arduino open hardware is leading the world in a completely different model of manufacturing and robots, but in the past has not been linked into the rest of the social economy, perhaps the rest of the social innovation movement. We have now mapped these all across Europe, and if you know of projects doing important digital social innovations, please add them onto this map and help us as well in proposing policies to the European Commission about what they can do to make the most of the potential of new technologies to transform how money is organized, how education is organized, how jobs may be organized into the future. This is quite new, but potentially quite important. I want to finish with my favorite painting, which is also the favorite painting of the people of Britain. Do you recognize this painting? It is a painting by an English painter called Turner. And it shows the Fighting Temeraire, an old sailing boat, is being pulled into harbor by a small steamboat to be broken up. This is its death. Now, why do I show this picture? The main reason is because I think this symbolizes the biggest challenge of social innovation and indeed innovation in any field. Often, the old structures are big, are strong. Often we are very attached to the old models and the old structures of welfare, or charity, or of business, like the sailing boat. And it is psychologically difficult to say goodbye to these and to say hello to the new, which may at first look odd or even ugly, like this little boat. Even more, the old structures suck in the money and the resources. According to the International Monetary Fund, this year, the OECD countries are subsidizing traditional banks to the tune of $600 billion. $600 billion of our money is going in to support the old banks, which should be, like this boat, being destroyed and replaced by something new. And this is the challenge of innovation always. the political challenge, the social challenge, the economic challenge is not just to create the new ideas, but also to move the old incumbent structures out of the way to create space for change. And to do this, we need alliances. We need alliances which cut across the sectors, which link the social entrepreneurs, the social economy, with our friends in business who are willing to be and want to be bees and not locusts, and with allies in government, and within government there are predatory locusts as well as bees. And more, I think we will find the key alliances are a cross-sector of the people who want to create a new collaborative economy, and our enemies will also be, in all sectors, the people who want to resist change. So I wish you well in making Italy a great example of the next generation of cooperation and the collaborative economy, and we will come and steal all of your best ideas. Thank you.